Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. So it's nearly 25 years since the demolition of the disputed structure. The Babri Masjid stood there at the site of Ram Janmabhoomi. 25 years we've been discussing what should happen, what should not happen. And then this week, a call for a trial to proceed, naming the senior most of BJP leaders, Lal Krishna Advani, Murli, Manohar, Joshi, Bharti. So a trial will now be proceed. The Supreme Court said in very strong words that it's slightly strange and it's almost a violation of justice that so many years have passed and there's actually been no real trial in this entire matter. Now, 2 years there will be a trial in this. The issue that we want to really discuss on The Big Fight are 2 or 3 very important points. Number one, what specifically is going to happen in this case? Will the trial really be able to prove one way or the other, 25 years later, what actually happened on the 6th of December 1992 and whether there was in fact a conspiracy behind the demolition of the Babri Masjid? Number two, an important point of whether there is any movement likely for which is going to be taking place in a forward direction, or is this going to become one of those issues that will keep popping up time and time again as it has for 100 years, continue to create discord, continue to create strife between communities, become a political football, or at some point will there be a solution that will be found? And that also leads me to the third point that I would like to discuss, which is at some point will we move the discourse away from all of these issues, which may be important, but sometimes are considered divisive issues, to the other areas of development. Now, the Ram Janmabhoomi, the temple at the Ram temple, of course, is a major issue. It's been there on the BJP's agenda, and millions of people feel very strongly about it. But we've seen in this week that there are other issues then starting to pop up, from people's tweets to comments to radical right-wingers who just come out and make a comment, and suddenly that becomes the national headlines. So a number of issues actually to discuss. We've got a great panel joining us to take us through all aspects of this. Pawan Khera is with us from the Congress Party, G.V. Narasimha Rao joining us from the BJP. And it's always a pleasure and a privilege to have with us Judge Gyansudha Mishra, who is of course a former judge of the Supreme Court. Well, Shahid Siddiqui, it's great to have you with us. You've of course been talking about this. You were very closely involved with the action that was actually taking place 25 years ago. So maybe we can get your inside views as to the conspiracy that may or may not have taken place. Ashok Malik, senior journalist, always a pleasure to have you with us. And last but by no means least, Maulana Khalid Rashid Firangi Mahili, a member of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, joining us from Lucknow. Thank you all so much for being with us. And GV, let me start with you, because whatever you may say about the rights and the wrongs of having a Ram temple at Ayodhya, whether it should be there on the specific site of Ram Janmabhoomi, whether it should be at another location, yes, it's a matter of faith. It's a matter which millions and millions of people feel very strongly about. But then there is a legal issue, that an act was committed where a mob took the law into its own hands on the 6th of December 1992, and that was an act that needs a certain amount of justice one way or the other, and that is separate from the question of what should happen at Ayodhya. Do you also feel it strange that 25 years have passed and there's been no trial here?
There has been a trial that has been going on at the local level, at the Sessions Court level, but what the Honorable Supreme Court has done now is to bring both the cases together to have a trial in one court in Lucknow. I think both, if you look at the title case issue, it's been pending for decades.
I think there are separate issues.
No,
there's a title issue. Yes. What should happen at Ayodhya? That's one issue. And yes, that's an issue that's been there for decades. Actually, theoretically, it goes back a century. Centuries, in fact. The second issue is what happened on the 6th of December and whether somebody should be punished for that or not. So there are two slightly separate issues. Let's discuss them individually. Ma'am, let me just come to you. The fact that no real justice has been done fully in that particular manner in such a long time. Yes, some people have gone to jail, then come back, but even those cases are continuing. I know some of the people who actually have confessed to leading the crowds, leading the mobs that day, their trials are also still proceeding.
Actually, we as judges are generally, express our opinion on the facts which is placed before us. But, in a forum like this, I go by the hearsay, because I have never dealt with what have been the causes of the delay, nor the records, nor I have seen the records. but what I gather from the informal sources is that the trial has, it has been delayed on account of a huge number of witnesses and colossal incident that happened on 6th of December. So, and now the Supreme Court has held that the trial should start against the conspiracy aspect. I think the idea behind is that I think the judiciary always moves on the dictum that justice should not only be done, but seem to have been done. Yeah. So, merely because of the delayed pendency of the matter, generally judges do not quash the matter, and that is how it has been kick-started.
Because ma'am, if you look at it, and before I come back to Ayodhya, this is not the only case, and I think we've had occasion to look at it earlier. Look at the number of cases where it just takes decades. You had the cases of various netas and their disproportionate assets cases. Sasikala took 25 years again. Look at Bofors, it's still been lingering on. I don't know how many, that's 30 years now have passed. Look at the 1984 riots case. Again, it's again more than 32 years, 33 years have passed out there. These things just seem to take forever. And that is where people then start to question whether justice is being done.
Whatever discussion we start, which is connected with the judiciary, ultimately it boils down to the law's delay. Yeah. And I think in so many forums, including the last one, I have always said, at least I believe this way, that there has to be some change into the code of criminal procedure, where we can, the legislators and the judicial experts and even the public at large, they can suggest ways and means as to how to deal with separate category of cases. Here, as I said, in my so many other programs also, that a case of theft and a case of 395 robbery, case of gang rape, case of economic offences, and now this case of conspiracy, where alarmingly huge a number of witnesses would be there. They are all treated, they are all wielded with one stick. How is it possible? So, unless there is a way to deal with separate category of cases in a separate manner, yeah, I don't think we are going to make headway in the speedy trial of the cases.
Shahid Siddiqui, let me get you in on that note.
I am very confident that there was a conspiracy. Whether the conspiracy was hatched by the people who have been named now or by a larger group, because my feeling is that it was not just Advani ji, maybe people like Advani ji were caught into that conspiracy. There was a larger conspiracy which did take place on what happened on 6th of December 1992. But
there's also a very real possibility that the conspiracy didn't involve the most senior leaders. Yes. It's a very real possibility that yes, emotions were whipped up and a mob went out of control on that day.
Vikram, that is your view, my view, because I was very much involved since 1986-87 with lot of discussions which took place off the record, on the record with various groups, and then I was a member of the National Integration Council there also, and then with the highest
the mob was directed.
No, mob was not directed. Mob, mob sentiments are whipped up, but there is a core group in this kind of situations, because you can, if you were there and those who were there, they saw that the way they went with the hathodas and the kuladas, they couldn't have broken, and they were not able to make much of an impact. They were going on and they were not able to make. Some implosion took place from inside. The wires were cut off, telephone wires were cut off. Most of the media person were not allowed to.
Yeah, they were beaten up, cameras
were smashed. There was a group which was working professionally.
I personally felt that it was a mob that went out of control. That was my first instinctive feeling, and I have continued to believe that for 25 years. Did some 10, 20 people in that mob instigate the mob? Did 20 people, did 50 people? I don't know. But I also remember Advani very specifically standing up and saying, please come down, aap niche utre, and that's recorded. So that I'm sure will be part of his defense. So how do you balance that with this charge that he was guilty of a pre-planned conspiracy, which I think is impossible to prove, and I would find difficult to believe.
Yes, I agree with that. Advani ji or Murli Manohar Joshi ji may not have been part, they may have been part of, organizing the mob, but not part of the conspiracy.
No, I think he is contradicting himself. But the fact is, you see, the Ram Mandir movement, was more of a social awakening movement. You cannot attribute that to some elements which have actually brought the structure down. It was not a mask, first of all.
Yes,
it was a disputed structure.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, JVL, in fact, I want to just play. So, I want to play a couple of things to help shed light on this. What Mr. Advani was repeatedly accused of doing at that time. So, yes, there is a real serious question as to whether
Rath Yatra, which whipped up the sentiments.
During the Rath Yatra, when the sentiments were being whipped up, Mr. Advani was repeatedly questioned. By the way, I used to ask both him, Dr. Murli, Joshi, Bharti and others, saying you're whipping up, you're playing with fire. When you're whipping up a large crowd in the immediate proximity of the disputed structure, there's always a chance that they will take the law into their own hands. Advani ji himself, when asked this question at that time, this is what he actually had to say about it. Well, he further goes on to say, in this, essentially, the views that he was expressed when he was repeatedly asked that, look, are you whipping up sentiment? He says, no, the crowds will be in control. Now, it's possible that he lost control. And then, if you ask Advani ji himself, later, he repeatedly said it was the saddest day of my life. In fact, let's hear that.
When that incident took place, I wrote an article a week or fortnight later in which I said it was the saddest day of my life.
And
this is what Advani ji said later.
In Ayodhya on that day, he actually appealed to the crowds to recede. It's there. I mean, I heard it.
Pawan, here's the issue.
Let me see what you played just now. I think is something that a lot of people say even today, and they have been saying it for the last 25 years. But you see, there was an environment in this country where the party in power at that time, the Congress party, was actually resorting to some kind of appeasement politics. And the appeasement went to the extent of denying even human rights to people.
Mr. Kalyan Singh,
so certainly, now Ram Mandir construction of the temple was an emotional issue. At that time,
even during the Gaur Rakshak issues.
Rajiv Gandhi's assassination,
Conveniently,
there was
they'll
no
say, no,
appeasement.
we just asked them to protect the cow. We didn't ask them to kill Akhlaq. We just wanted them to protect the cows, but we don't want them to kill Pehlu Khan. We just asked them to go and awaken, as he said, social awakening. We didn't ask them to go and demolish the mosque. This is a very convenient deniability.
Actually, hang on. I think he's making a really important point out there, because the point that he's making is, look, let's assume what Ashok is saying is correct and what you're saying is correct. L.K. Advani, Murli Manohar Joshi, perhaps even Bharti, they all led this movement. Was there a danger that this movement could lead to passions being inflamed and an act of vandalism being done? Yes, it was. And by the way, they were aware of it. It's not that they weren't aware that there's a possibility that the crowd could run out of control. Now, when the crowd finally gets out of control, you can say, well, you know,
Vikram,
we didn't ask them to do this.
Vikram,
but do they share the responsibility for having inflamed sentiments to that point?
No, creating awareness and awakening, I think, cannot be considered the real reason for this. I think
I can
the
quote
illegal act courts can prosecute them for bringing the structure down, but certainly creating awakening cannot be considered.
Before I come to you, and I want to come to Maulana Sahab, ma'am, let me ask you, as the Supreme Court judge among all of us, which way is it? Supposing I say I hate this person, you know, whatever, I whip up sentiments against one person, and I keep on talking and about a particular person or about something, and then a crowd gets out of control and attacks that person or a structure or whatever it is. Am I guilty? Am I culpable?
You see, in the criminal justice system, I guess the case of rioting, I guess this case also must have been registered under section 149 of the Indian Penal Code. I think that is one of the most difficult cases that a judge has to deal with as to who is guilty of what, because there are a large number of persons or accused involved in it. And while some may be, treated as, abetment to the crime, giving provocation to the crime, and some would really be executing it. So basically, it depends upon the evidence that is brought in the trial, which will determine, and it will be very wrong for me to say one way or the other at this stage.
So it's a fine line, you're saying, ma'am.
Yes.
It has to be judged as to at what point does
who did what.
Talking about something lead to actual incitement. Can I just come to Maulana Khalid Rashid?
First of all, we all have welcomed the judgment of the Supreme Court, in which it has said that criminal conspiracy charges must be framed. And although everyone knows that 25 years have gone by, and it is generally said that justice delayed is justice denied, but still the silver lining is that the court has said that a day-to-day trial must be conducted and charges must be framed by the trial court within 2 years. So at least after 2 years, this world will know that who were the real conspirators. As far as the real conspirators are concerned, everyone knows who people were responsible for leading this movement, and the people who were at Ayodhya at the time of when Babri Masjid was demolished, and who have given provocative speeches which led to promoting enmity, disturbing public order and public peace, and even disturbing the national integration. And the most important part is that after the demolition of the masjid, large-scale communal riots took place. More than 1,000 people were killed, and still nobody knows that who were responsible for all these criminal acts.